Welcome to today's video. In this video, we shall look at the square root of a sword. How do you find the square root of a sword? When you take the square root of a sword, you are essentially looking for another sword, or you are simplifying the expression further. Sometimes the square root of a sword can be simplified into a product of a rational number and another sword. Before we continue, I want us to note that swords are in the form, for example, A square root B. This is the form of a sword. Now, let's look at two key, I'll call it two key laws in sword that will help us in finding the square root of a sword. The first law of sword is that if we have a square root, for example, of A times B, it means that we can separate these two terms. So it means that if we have square root of A times B, it can also be written as square root A times square root B. So this is one law that will help us when finding the square root of a sword. A next law which we must know is that the square root of the square of a number gives us that number. The square root of the square of a number gives us that number. For example, if I have square root of A squared, this gives me A. If I have, for example, square root of 2 squared, this should give me 2. If you're wondering how we got this, you have to remember your indices. So for example, if we have square root of 2 squared, is also written as 2 squared or raised to the power of half. This half represents these square roots. And if I have this, it means that 2 cancel 2. So what we have left is 2 raised to power 1, which gives us 2. So this is how we got these concepts that the square root of the square of a number will always give us that number. All right, now let's solve the square root of swords. How do we solve the square root of sword? I'll give us 2 steps. Step 1 is that we have to find the prime factorization of the number. Step 1, you have to find the prime factorization of a number. These steps I'm showing us today is a bit different, but I think it will help you a lot. The first step again is to find the prime factorization of the number. If you want to learn how to do prime factorization, you can click the link at the top left, or sorry, at the top right corner. Pause this video and watch that video first. Then you can come back to this video. That video will help you a lot in understanding how we do prime factorization. Step 2 is to arrange the prime factors in the form of A squared where applicable. The second step is to arrange the prime factors in the form of index form, in which the highest power should be 2. Step 2 is to arrange the prime factors in the form of Step 2 is to arrange the prime factors in index form. in which the highest power must be 2. So now let's look at a question. Question 1. For example, we're asked to simplify square root of 50 in its simplest form. So the first step we do, remember the first step is to find the prime factorization of the number. So I'll come right here. I will draw my t, write my 50 right here. Please, if you don't know how to do prime factorization, please click the link at the top right corner so you can understand what I'm doing. So we start with the lowest or the smallest prime number. We start with 2. 2 into 50 is 25. So next I will use 5 because 2 cannot divide 25 without a remainder, because what we are doing here is to divide the number until we reach 1. So next I will use 5. 5 divided 25 is 5, and 5 divided 5 is 1. Remember, step 2 says we should arrange the prime factors in index form with the highest power of 2. So these are the prime factors of 50. So we have 2 times 5 times 5 times 5. That will give us 2 times 5 squared. So 2 is our highest power. So therefore, square root of 50 is same thing as saying 50 is 2 times 5 squared. So these are the prime factors of 50. So again, remember the first law. We can separate these two terms. So we now have square root of 2 times square root of 5 squared. Now, remember the second law that states that the square root of the square of a number gives the number. So this square will cancel the square roots. So we now have square root of 2 times 5. So therefore, root 50 in its simplest form is 5 root 2. So this is our final answer. Again, remember, the number must come before the square root. So our final answer is 5 root 2. Now let's look at our next example. We're asked to find the simplest form or the surd form for 12. So root 12, again, step 1, we find the prime factorization of 12. Again, I will draw my t, put my 12 right here. I'll start with the smallest prime number, which is 2. 2 divided 12 is 6. 2 divided 6 is 3. And 3 divided 3 is 1. Please remember that the idea here is to divide with the smallest prime number that will leave no remainder. So you divide until you reach 1. So therefore, the prime numbers or prime factors for 12 are 2 times 2 times 3. Now, our second step states that we must arrange these prime factors in index form with the highest power of 2. So we have 1, 2, so that's 2 squared times 3. So therefore, root 12 is the same as saying root 2 squared times 3. Our first law states that we can separate both. So we now have 2 squared times root 3. Again, remember our second law states that the square root of the square of a number gives that number. So the square root of the square of 2 will give us 2 because the power will cancel the square roots. So we have 2 times root 3. So therefore, root 12 in its simplest form or simplest surd form is 2 root 3. So that is our final answer. Let's take one more. Let's express root 108 in its simplest form. Again, our first step is to find the prime factorization of 108. So again, I will draw my t. Yes, by 108. I will find the prime factors for 108 by starting with the smallest prime number. Start with 2. 2 divided 10 is 5. 2 divided 8 is 4. Continue with 2. 2 divided 5 is 2. When the 1. 2 into 14 is 7. All right. 2 into 27, we leave a remainder, so we can't use that. So we use 3. 3 into 27 is 9. We use 3 again. 3 into 9 is 3. Then 3 into 3 is 1. So the prime factors for 108 are 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 3. Our step 2 states that we should arrange the prime factors in index form with the highest power of 2. So we have 2, 1, 2, so that's 2 squared, times we have 3, 3, that's 3 squared, times 3. So therefore, root 108 is the same as saying root 2 squared times 3 squared times 3. So our first law in Surds states that we can split these terms into their separate terms. So we have root 2 squared times root 3 squared times root 3. Now, our second law states that the square roots of the square of a number gives the number. That means that the power cancel the square roots. The power cancel the square roots. So what we have here is just 2 times 3 times root 3. So we have 2 times 3 is 6. So we have 6 root 3. So therefore, the simplest form of root 108 is 6 root 3. So that is our final answer. Thanks for watching.